Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen. Rebel Moon co-writer on the negative reviews and the Star Wars comparisons. He says, and I quote, "We're trying to do different things." Okay, interesting. If you've seen this movie, I'm sure you will, I don't know, you got any sort of broad experience with sci-fi products out there, fantasy products out there, I'm sure you will see that actually the comparisons are not just to Star Wars, they're to Warhammer 40k, Seven Samurai. I mean, there's many things that it references. They quite literally take words which, you know, were popularized specifically by Warhammer 40k. In fact, the aesthetics on this are 100% Warhammer 40k. So the Imperium of Man, that's a Warhammer 40k reference. This creature here, this individual here in this image, this is a robot, and they call it a Mechanicus. That's Warhammer 40k. The guns are ripped right out of Warhammer 40k. The way that what Zack Snyder calls slag in this universe, even that is Warhammer 40k. The armor is Warhammer 40k. I mean, everything. A lot of this stuff is pulled right out of Warhammer 40k. Or like a lot of it. And I don't even know why. Like, it's interesting as to, I mean, even the banners, even right down to the banners, a lot of this stuff, it just seems to be ripped right out of Warhammer 40k. It's bizarre how he didn't think anyone would realise that. And it's bizarre how very few people are honing in on that. And I think it's because, although Warhammer 40k is very popular, it's not as popular. So, you know, a lot of people don't have the exposure to it as they do Star Wars. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy Rebel Moon. I was very bored. So, yes. It's interesting, though. It is very interesting. So, let's take a look, right? He spoke with Variety. It's the co-writer, Kurt Johnstad, was asked about the similarities to Star Wars. While he feels comparisons were inevitable, he believes Rebel Moon does stand on its own. It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. So he says the following: "It's impossible not to be compared to Star Wars. And everything else you stole from. They're very different worlds. We're trying to do very different things. I have great respect for George Lucas and everything that he's done for 50 years. He's changed the shape of this entire town. So we can't say that we haven't been affected or haven't absorbed some of those lessons and cinematically those experiences. It would be false, and we'd be lying. The idea is, if given our own opportunity, just like George was a complete rebel in this town and an iconoclast, how can we do the same thing in our time? That isn't a written mandate, but it's just like, oh, how can I write the most provocative, inspiring, interesting twist and turn kind of story? George used Campbell's hero's journey, as did we. This is Cora's story, and she's at the heart of the movie. Well, few things to note. You know, George Lucas stole from history, right? So you look at the Empire, right? I mean, a lot of it's inspired by Nazi Germany. You know, the outfits, the uniforms, the structure. You know, and there's elements. I believe he even referenced Vietnam War in there. Some apparently, anyway. So he stole from history. The difference with Rebel Moon is they steal from other fantasy products, and they steal from better fantasy products. So the unfortunate part of that is that, you know, you're always going to be compared to the better product. And like I said, I mean, the comparison to Star Wars is actually a bad comparison, because the comparison to Warhammer 40k is a much better one. Much better. Because it quite literally appears to be a copy and paste job for a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff. So I don't quite understand what they believe they were doing. And the reason why it's being compared to Star Wars predominantly is because Zack Snyder came out and said, hey, this was my pitch for a Star Wars movie. So that's why it's being compared to Star Wars. And I don't quite believe the story about how this came to be, because apparently there was a story where he wrote this years ago. He pitched it years ago. People were like, yeah, you need to pick up on that. You gotta, that's got to get made. That'll be the next big thing, blah, blah, blah. Then there was a story that he pitched it to Kathleen Kennedy in Star Wars, and then they didn't want it. There's just so many rumors and rumblings about how this even came to be. But it's just not that good. It's boring. And I don't see Cora's hero's journey. I don't see the hero's journey in Cora here at all. I mean, yeah, people will go, yeah, because it's only part 1. Okay, whatever. And loads of people are hanging on for the Snyder cut of Rebel Moon. Sorry? Is this just going to be the thing now? We always wait for they release the inferior product and then we get a better product. I'm not going to waste another 2 hours, 3 hours of my life watching this movie, which will just be bulked out with more slow-mo. Anyway, does he read the reviews? No. I don't read the reviews. I never have. Maybe you should, because maybe you'd be better. A better writer. Because holy crap, the writing was not very good. Critics have a job to do. We live in a democracy. Everybody gets to vote. If people watch the film, they'll have an experience. Yep, my experience was almost falling asleep. And they will either enjoy it or they won't. It's flavours of ice cream. In my career of 20 years doing this, reviews have never equated to performance. No, this is true. But the platform you've released this on also doesn't equate to performance either, because people will breeze in and watch it simply because it's for free. Would they go out and pay for it though? Probably not. A movie will either perform or it won't. People will either love it or be connected to it. And I think what this movie has is an emotional drive. No, it doesn't. It was so very boring and there was no stakes. And when people died, at one point I laughed when the rebel jumped off of a runway and speared a guy to death. I laughed because it was derivative trash. Anyway, what this movie has is an emotional drive and a core and characters that are vulnerable. No one's vulnerable and there's no stakes. And it ended having achieved nothing. And of course, there's sequence and action and visual. I love this part because this is actually all this movie was. There's sequence and action and visual. There's very little action in this movie. And what action there is was awfully choreographed. But it's all just visuals. That's all it is. It's a magnificent looking film. Yeah, I'll give him that. Like, it looked okay. It wasn't magnificent. Like, I've seen better looking films. But I think that at the core of it, it's got emotion. The emotion of boredom, that was it. It was, oh my god. There's an emotional engine and a currency that runs through the film that I think works. So I'd invite people to check it out. Well, I'd invite you to read some of the reviews, because if you did, you'd probably realise that what you're talking is laughable and absolute nonsense, because very few people wanted... There's no emotional connection to the characters in this movie. It's not good. It's genuinely not good. So there you go. Funny. And again, I'm not going to belittle anyone that likes this movie. You like it? Absolutely. Sure. Be my guest. But there's very little substance to it. And the comparisons to Star Wars are incorrect, because actually they stole more from Warhammer 40k. If you're going to steal from something, make sure you're the superior product that you steal from. Because if not, holy shit, you're going to get ripped apart. So there you go. Love to hear your thoughts. Drop it down below. Hope you had a great Christmas. Take care. Bye-bye now.